A little over a year ago, we put together a team to investigate improving the play areas for the Academy children. It was a project that had been in the works for a while, and there were other improvements suggested that sounded good as well. After a few meetings, it became evident that it was more complicated than removing some trees and constructing playscapes. It would involve detailed drawings, permissions from Savannah quarters, engineering reports, and city permits. It was obvious we needed to revisit the planning process begun a few years ago. When Pastor Peckman and several other leaders left, those plans got put on hold. Now, Pastor Mark has been here a year and has learned how things work, what our ministry is like, and what the community is like. Whatever our plans are, they need to mesh with his passion for and knowledge of ministry. We have new leadership in place, and things are back to a normal operating condition. So we decided we needed to revisit our planning for the future. Over the summer, our leadership met to prepare for an important planning session this fall. And today, I want to share where we're headed and invite input. Nothing is decided yet. This is the start of a shared conversation. On June 24th, our leadership gathered to revisit the planning work done a few years ago and prepare for church-wide session guided by Dr. Ken Fisher. Dr. Fisher is president of Wisconsin Lutheran High School and has experience conducting planning sessions for churches and schools. Our guiding principle will be mission first, building second. We want to discern what God is calling us to do before we talk about any buildings or site improvements. This is about a shared vision for the next 3 to 5 years and beyond, shaped by everyone's input. We are planning on a roughly 6-hour day on September 12th, facilitated by Dr. Fisher, and looking out over a 3 to 5 year horizon. This is not a voters' meeting where binding decisions will be made. We want input from as many people as we can get. There will be no wrong ideas or suggestions. We're looking for venues now, and we'll let you know as soon as we find one. Because people come to church from different directions, we want to keep the location as near the church as possible. We will use a simple framework to keep our focus and guide our decisions. Must, should, and can. Must are the ministry essentials we're called to do and meet our mission. Should are important priorities we pursue as we're able. Can are good ideas that shouldn't pull us away from what matters most. You will decide what must, should, and can are. On the 12th, the morning will be about mission and priorities, reaffirming who we are, defining our must, should, can criteria, and setting our top 3 to 5 objectives, noting any facility, staffing, and financial implications. The afternoon turns to pathways. Depending on the morning, we'll focus on building and expansion options, program development, and ministry and outreach options. Then we will set next steps, owners, and timelines. The planning session will gather feedback and set a clear direction. From there, formal decisions will go through the Council of Ministries. Council will then make recommendations, and any spending will be approved at a voters' meeting. The session guides us, but our normal, prayerful process still governs decisions. This keeps everything transparent and protects the whole congregation. Before the session, we want to hear from the congregation and gather the facts. A new, carefully written survey goes out in early August and stays open for 2 weeks. Mike Hefty has compiled our recent history and community demographics. Cameron is looking at finances. And Mark Schultz gathered member data. Your input directly shapes the priorities we bring to the table. Just about any decision on expansion will involve the wooded lot to the southeast of the sanctuary. Because of the Phase 3 pictures and plans on the wall in the lobby, I think there's an expectation that that area is off limits for any building other than a sanctuary. After looking at our financial situation, which Cameron will address, and our current worship space needs, we think this needs to be addressed at our planning session. This is the main issue driving all other building and site questions. We also need to address parking issues. There's plenty of parking for most worship services, and large services like Christmas and Easter can be handled with 2 services. The biggest parking need is for student drop-off and pickup. The current drop-off and pickup needs are based on Mark's harvest strategy, which I think is a solid one. But we need to discuss this as a part of our planning. We've discussed new playground equipment and where we can put it for several years. I think this is a need, but my opinion doesn't matter. We need to address this issue as well. Finally, we have several options before we run out of space in our current sanctuary. It is generally agreed that when a sanctuary regularly reaches 80% capacity, moving to 2 services will increase attendance. According to Mike's projections, we won't reach that level until 2030. When both services reach 80%, we can still expand the sanctuary by removing the half wall separating the sanctuary and social hall. We also need to make decisions about where we want to grow our school. The school is now self-supporting. In fact, over the past several years, it has brought in more than it spends, which is a real blessing to our ministry. It's also a doorway to families who don't yet have a church home. Mark's harvest strategy does a great job of getting unchurched families into worship and making our diverse school families feel at home in the church. Our goal is not recruiting members, it's sharing the gospel with them. But we need to make plans for the future. Many classes meet their capacity and have waiting lists. But increasing classes has its drawbacks. The upper grades are often victims of parents wanting to move their kids into private schools before high school so that they have an option beyond our 8th grade. Expanding to high school is an option, but we don't currently have classroom capacity, so that's another question that needs to be answered. There are also things we can consider that don't cost any money at all. We need to steward our time and talents as well as our treasure. We can help out our staff by volunteering to help with events and projects, and they need to know that they can ask members to help and then give them the autonomy to take control. Another option is to pair new members with established members to help them get familiar with Risen Savior. We are a mid-sized church and growing. We should think of staffing that will help. A development lead could help us find financial and community resources, potentially paying for itself. A generous member has funded a large portion of the cost for a vicar. There are multiple advantages to having a vicar, but the earliest we would receive one is August 2027. So we have a little time to explore completing our funding needs for a vicar. And finally, we need to look at opportunities to expand into the community. In previous surveys and planning meetings, outreach was overwhelmingly listed as a priority for our congregation, in true keeping with Wells' philosophy. But other than our school, our outreach into the community has lagged. Gated communities, large apartment complexes, and a general resistance to even open a door to a stranger have made our old ways of community outreach obsolete. We need to investigate new ways to reach the people in our immediate vicinity. We also have a sister congregation in Mayor River that could use our help, and in turn could help us in outreach. Materials have already gone out to Dr. Fisher. In early August, the survey opens for 2 weeks. Through August, we compile our history, finances, and demographics. And it all comes together at the planning session on September 12th. Please watch for the survey and take part. You can prepare for the survey by making a note of things as you think of them. Then when the survey comes out, you'll have those things at hand and won't have to try to remember them. If you think of things after the survey, jot them down and bring them to the planning session. We're pursuing both near-term wins and long-term mission. Think about where our ministry should go. Remember, a church is not a building or a shared theology. It is people, a family brought together through the love of Christ. Please keep our efforts in your prayers, and thank you for embarking on this journey with us.